Next week we have class Monday and Tuesday in large group.
Oh, I like.
And then you're off to Thanksgiving break, and then you come back and you have class Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That week you come back from Thanksgiving break, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is exam number 2, which means there's Monday and Tuesday next week and Monday of the following week, 3 days left to kind of finalize your preparation for this 4-paragraph beast. So I don't want to, I'd like to give you the kind of the weekend off to just kind of turn off, but I will say this, that next week, Monday, Tuesday, we're going to sort of attack that 4th paragraph. So, I mean, if you want to attack that over the weekend, okay, if you have nothing to do, I'm not telling you have to do that. But we also should start looking at the slavery articles. So did you read your 3 pages?
He never talked to us about them.
Take that back.
Yeah.
Who's,
Yeah,
wait.
Lindy never did.
Oh, Lindy. God, I thought you said you.
No, Lindy did.
Okay. Yes, I did.
Just kidding.
Okay.
You did. I remember.
I assigned you 3 pages.
I was there.
2.
Three. Some of you get to. Okay. So I'm assuming you've read them and that you've found evidence that historian Genovese either supports or refutes the argument, the 3 arguments that it was slaves were charged based on cultural norms or financial incentive or
I'm more sick about the rest.
I should say, and or fear of punishment. And you've read and you found evidence for that. Yeah, why don't we save that for after? So let's save that for after you're done with the Unit 2 exam. We'll
Attack the paper.
attack the paper in earnest. Plus, we'll start Unit 3. This train don't stop.
Yeah.
But I do promise you, well, I shouldn't promise you. I do strongly believe that this is one of those classes where during it's challenging and hard and it's frustrating, but afterwards, you're glad you did it. It's like, yeah.
Push through.
We've all had those classes which were a piece of cake,
Civic.
and
No.
during it,
I didn't know where he was going with that.
brainless, and then afterwards you think, I didn't learn a thing. What a colossal waste of time. What I'm hoping that you see this class is it's rigorous and it's challenging, and you like it while it's in it. Yes,
I'm
it's
actually
tough,
learning
but
something.
afterwards you're glad you did it. Plus,
I
there's
usually
6
don't
credits.
learn in school. I've actually learned in this class.
Years.
I didn't even know what a war was until this class.
You did too know what a war was.
I took one conflict.
Hi.
I love running conflict.
Did you get all your little notes?
Yeah, I read all of them.
Did you?
Uh-huh.
Did you feel better?
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of affection for the people?
Yeah, I told him I loved everybody.
I know. But I don't see that's not right. You're just like a very good and caring.
Yeah, I love everybody. I just love everybody even more.
I know. Except him.
What?
No, those are my best friends.
No, Potter. Okay, this is constant. I get this from Schultz in our class period.
So our theme today is sort of related to our theme yesterday. And yesterday the conclusion was, hey, society is broken. Let's fix it.
Is this
Let's
going?
fix society. And I said to you,
Yes.
I said to some of you yesterday, I forgot to say this to everybody, that every once in a while American history is kind of sort of cyclical. And you'll see this revisit every once in a while, this galvanizing effort to fix society. And I would suggest to you that the 1830s were like that. The 1900s, just before World War I, were like that. That's called the Progressive Era. The 1960s were like that. A galvanizing of Americans to fix what's wrong. This is another story. And you see this every once in a while. Society's messed up. Let's leave. Let's start our own society. It's what the Pilgrims did, right? England is messed up. Let's leave. It's what the Mormons did. It's what Jonestown was. And I'm bringing that up for an intentional reason. Those of you who took sociology, we spent a lot of time on Jonestown 40 years ago today. 40 years ago today, they had Kool-Aid.
Wait, today? I was just about
That today was the day.
I believe it was 40 years ago today.
That's weird.
Yeah. If you get these things called newspapers, there's a nice spread. His kids, he had two boys who today just totally renounce his views, but they survived. They were both on a basketball team.
Wait, what happened?
There was a mass suicide in a cult. that
When they
had
drank the
moved
Kool-Aid?
to South
You ever
America,
heard about
and
that?
they committed
She was never in
suicide
sociology. She
Did
didn't
not take
sociology.
by drinking Kool-Aid. His two kids, Jim Jones' two kids, were on a basketball team, and they were at that time playing in a large city in Guyana. And Jim Jones told his sons, "Please come home. We're committing mass suicide." And they said, "Nah, we got a game, so we're just play that game." Yes, dear.
It's the 18th.
Oh, okay, 2 days. All right,
How-
so today's
how-
the 16th, so 2 days from now.
How old are his kids now?
I don't know.
What's a mass suicide? They all kill each other?
They
all killed themselves. They all drank Kool-Aid and there was poison in the Kool-Aid. He told his sons to kill them? He was a cult. It was like a belief, like that they had to do this for the
The
religion. The
Oh
sons
my
said
god,
no.
that's so cool.
Well, he didn't legitimately tell his sons like we're gonna
Okay,
kill ourselves.
so
He said we have a ritual.
This here's
or
the
whatever,
story of
just to
another
go.
group like that. Again, the conclusion was society's messed up, let's leave. The Mormons that started off in Western New York. And somebody asked me over here, I think it was Eve actually, who said, what did the Mormons believe that was so radical that the surrounding New York community said, you guys got to go? There were two things. Does anyone know? Give us one.
They had lots of wives.
Very good. Multiple wives, which goes against the Christian tradition of one wife. Today the definition of marriage is somewhat, I don't want to say controversial, but different interpretations. Religiously, various religious groups say it's got to be a man and a woman, although there are some religions that say, who cares? If you love someone, whatever. But it's still a one-on-one thing in the U.S. Whether it's man, woman, or man, it's still one marriage partner. The Mormons believed in multiple wives. And sociology would explain that reasonably. Do you remember what a functionalist is? Those of you who took sociology, functionalists? Functionalists would explain the reason the Mormons did that is because there was a man shortage. There just weren't enough guys in the religion. So he's like, I can solve that. Multiple wives. There, problem solved.
The man to girl ratio was off. So one man just got more girls.
Yes.
Is that illegal like here now to have more than one like wife or husband?
Yes, it is.
Don't they make shows
It
about
is
it?
illegal today.
Yeah, Sister Williams. Good show.
Let me continue that story. Let's address that in just a bit. So the guy that founded this group was called, his name was Joseph Smith. He started in Western New York. His views were not welcome. The multiple wives. By the way, they did have one other radical belief. I was just wondering if you knew that. They had their own holy book. And Christians were bugged because no, there's one holy book, the Bible, that's it. They had their own holy book, the Book of Mormon. That's why the play is called the Book of Mormon, because they wrote their own book. And the Christians in New York were like, no.
Where did Mormon come from, like that word?
More men is what we need, but we don't.
So that's why I have the book, question mark. Oh my
Yes,
God,
Bryn.
the answer's right there. Okay. The other thing they did, which sort of bugged what I'll say are regular Americans, is they created their own militia. Well, that's an army. That's a threat. And they voted in mass. So Joseph told everyone who they vote for, and then they vote in mass. Which did you know that there are laws today that say that that priest or that minister, whoever you go to see on Sunday, cannot tell you who to vote for. They can't do that. That's an abuse of their position. Churches are, for the most part, exempt of paying taxes, but when they start getting into politics, then the government comes back and says, wait a minute now, you're exempt from paying taxes, but that means you're supposed to stay out of government too. Now, that doesn't mean they can't expound their views on issues, fine. But they can't say, yeah, next election, go Trump. They can't do that. Otherwise, their exempt status goes away. So as a result of this, they moved to Illinois. So here's the state of Illinois, and so they moved to Illinois.
You're welcome.
And they're not exactly welcome there either. Their views on polygamy, their continued belief in their own book, led to Joseph Smith getting arrested. It was kind of interesting because when he was arrested, the authorities that arrested him basically said to him, look, this is for your protection because there's a mob out here wanting to kill you. So they arrested him to protect him from the angry mob. The mob broke into the jail and killed him anyway. So that means Joseph here needs to be replaced. Does anyone know who replaced him? It was in your key. There's a school out west named after him.
That's weird.
Where's the school? Give me a state.
No, it's in like Wyoming.
His name is Brigham Young.
Oh, I looked at
BYU. They beat Wisconsin earlier this year in football. Brigham Young is his name. He came to the conclusion that the Mormons would never be welcome in the U.S. So what does he do? He takes his group and he heads to this area, which is fairly recently acquired from Mexico thanks to the Mexican-American War. But no one lives there. Perfect. We can start our own society where we get to dictate the rules. How many times have we talked about that line of thinking? It's what the Pilgrims did. Over here, we're picked on. Over here, we'll be the ones that pick on. Over here, our views are weird. Over here, our views are the norm. Same thing. The Mormons, here, their views are weird. Here, their views are weird. Here, their views are normal. Because that's what everyone thinks. We are part of the norm. Yes, dear.
So where this group like not like a violent or like cult until like that one like leader that like had them kill themselves like be the leader? Does that make sense?
I'm not following you.
She thought
Wait.
Jonestown was the Mormon.
Oh, then never mind.
That's completely different. You're good.
I will allow the conclusion, though, that people thought of the Mormons as a cult. Cult is in the eye of the beholder. There are people that think Catholics are a cult, that you're blindly led, and that they have weird views. Did you just want to say?
There's weird people in the school.
No, there's another term for wives, multiple husbands. That is not polygamy. It's something. So there they go. They move to Utah. They dictate their own rules. Since they are not a state, but a territory, they're not violating any state laws about who can marry whom. But when Utah and Brigham Young became the first governor of the territory Utah, when they applied for statehood, the answer was no, because you have laws about marriage that contradict American norms. Until you change those laws, you will not become a state. And it took them about 50 years. Utah was one of the last states. In fact, I think this is right. It's number 48. 49 and 50 are, of course, Alaska and Hawaii. but it's the last of the 48 contiguous states to become a state. And the reason was polygamy. Today, the Mormons still exist. They still dominate out west, but they no longer believe in polygamy. It is no longer a thing. They also had some funny views on blacks. And this is true. Look this up if you want. But I believe right around the year 1978, the Mormons taught that God changed his mind and that black people are okay. God changed his mind. Awesome. Yes.
I thought Arizona.
Okay, I might be wrong.
where did they start? Like with Joseph Smith, where did they start?
New York.
So they started in New York, and then they moved to
And they moved to Illinois,
and
then they moved to Utah.
Brigham. Okay.
So again, yes?
Was Hawaii or Alaska state?
Alaska. Hawaii is the 50th state. Alaska. Hawaii is the 50th state. That's partly why
You know what number was
the argument that Obama was not born in the United States is, in a way, oddly, technically true, because he was born in Hawaii before Hawaii was a state. Obama. Oh. But
When did Hawaii become a state?
50 something.
We just said that.
Okay. Continuing on this path, what we're doing is we're looking at groups that headed for the hills. This is a dichotomy of American history. Sometimes Americans say society's effed up, let's fix it. And sometimes Americans say society's effed up, let's leave. And yesterday we looked at the attempt to fix it. Today we're looking at multiple examples of let's leave. We are looking at what are called utopian societies. I could easily call them dystopian societies. Do we have literature people in here? Have you studied dystopian novels? Yes, you have.
Is that correct? Corrupt government?
Yes, you have.
Corrupt government?
Like, for example,
Bridge to Turbine.
I've never read that one. Is that true?
We read The Giver.
The Giver. Very good.
Corrupt government.
Maze Runner. Yep. What's that one with Jennifer Lawrence? The Hunger Games. Dystopian. Any book that is set in the future after the big one, whatever that means, and then the government, after the big one, after some sort of a nuclear holocaust, has concluded that it needs to be dictatorial and need to be all controlling. And so, in the Hunger Games, they have to pick two people from each district to remind everyone that District 1 is in control or whatever. Okay. Where Utopia was a book written by Thomas More. Have you studied that book?
Nope.
Those of you who go to college, you will. You will read that book, Utopia. It's an awful book. But in Utopia, everything's perfect. Everything's perfect.
That's what I was talking about with Bridge to Turbine.
Dystopian novels are, it
Utopian
appears that
No,
everything's
it's not.
perfect, but you scratch it a little bit,
Terabithia is.
something's wrong,
Like Terabithia itself, not the
Yes.
book, just the place that they create.
et cetera, et cetera.
But if you just said Bridge to Terabithia,
The book.
like that book is
Yeah.
not just the place that they create.
I am showing you 4 groups that concluded America is bad, let's head for the hills, and none of them ended well. We could call them cults or dystopian societies, like the Harmony, Indiana group that had some unusual practices sexually. Basically, community orgies.
They got killed by STDs.
Right?
Jack.
The Brookings Farm of 1841. Again, these are all, we don't need to get into the details here, but all I'm doing is showing you a group of people that have concluded that society is bad. Let's cut ourselves off. Let's start our own rules. Let's start our own society. And any cult, Jonestown is an example. The Waco, Texas Branch Davidians are an example. Those of you in sociology. These are all the same thing. American history is full of this stuff. We need to head off. The Oneida community, 1848, taught that happiness was a sin. If you're happy, it's because you're being selfish.
Oh.
So you can't lust.
So were they not happy?
No, they were miserable. Perfect. And
I'd be in hell.
I can't remember which one of these. I cannot remember which one, but one of these had the unusual belief that sex was a sin, so no sex, and of course the cult died off.
Wasn't.
It wasn't.
I mean, that was it. They died off. Once the last one was dead, it's like, oh, that was a good one. Good idea, Bill. You're looking at the Shakers, a religious ceremony where, I know we've talked about this before, the Shakers who ended up moving to Indiana.
Wait, how do you quake?
Very fun. Okay. Again, no detailed notes here necessary. You're just looking at a pattern of we need to head for the hills. And it continues to this day. Those of you in sociology again, Heaven's Gate. They headed for the hills.
Like, it was like
People's Temple was Jonestown. Yep.
The brethren, they were trash.
freed women.
Really?
Yeah, that's what me and Ben had our presentation.
Did eat applesauce and kill themselves?
Probably.
No, Heaven's Gate drank
Yeah, I don't know
vodka
why he like.
laced with something, but they all wore Nikes.
They all like. They all wore the Nike.
And then that one rapper made his album like whole symbol thing.
Yes.
You
You got it. Okay. That's it. No more notes. So you can put notes away.
My new favorite word is galvanizing.
It's a good one. So it is fair for me to say this. Get out your revised first 3 paragraphs. Now, you're one of 3 populations. You're one of more than 3 populations. Either you wrote it and revised it, so you are where I'm hoping you are, or you wrote it, you did not revise it, or you didn't write it at all.
I think I typed mine.
So
I don't really remember.
to that third population, I would say you still should participate in what we're about to do, and that is sort of a writer's workshop here. At least reading other people's will generate some thoughts in your head.
My computers.
To the other 2 populations, awesome, way to go. But we're trading. We're trading, and we're looking at it with a critical eye. You are looking at someone else's essay. A lot of times this is very helpful. Looking at someone else's essay will lead you to one of 2 conclusions. One, hey, that's a good idea. I should do that. Or, wow, that's a terrible idea. I won't do that. Either way, you benefit. Okay. But help each other here. When you're reading someone else's, don't do yeah, it's great, and just give it back to them. You haven't helped them at all. Okay. Really try and read it with a critical eye, based on the handout. This is how I read your essays. I look for those things. Do you have a topic sentence? Do you have document evidence? Do you have a piece of historical evidence which, in paragraph number 2, appears to somewhat support the conclusion of whoever you're addressing in paragraph number 2, but then you've got that second piece of historical evidence that says, however, this is wrong. Okay, and then drenched in that is analysis, right? And then in your 4th paragraph, 3rd paragraph, you're the other side of it. Okay, that's what I'm hoping you do as you're reading each other's essays. But you also have 2 kias that are due, so that's in your little universe. Okay. Plus, you've got this slavery thing that we're going to do eventually, right? Plus, I think you should be writing your 4th paragraph eventually. Why don't we? Well, when did I see that?
What?
When did I say we were going to
You said we were
Monday.
dive into that Monday and Tuesday?
Tuesday.
All right, fine. Any questions?
Could we get like an example?
Like a sheet of paper with the conclusion?
Did I ever do that before?
No, we've never got a conclusion, then we just wrote it. With the outline.
Yeah, yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know.
I've never given you a throughout history.
I mean,
No.
we've
We've looked at people's, I think, from.
we've looked at some, concluding like.
We've never got one about
examples of
Amontes and
cardboard,
the other
but I don't think we've ever got
peppers.
a full one complete.
Yeah, we did.
At
Is
first,
that what
then
they're talking about?
Guy hit
Yeah.
bam there.
Where-
Seriously, guy.
Which one is that one?
Since ancient times, one thing has linked people together: the meal,
Oh, yeah. we want-
including paragraph on pepper and amante. There it is. Do you still have it? I'd be happy to give you a new
Yeah,
copy.
I have a
Yes,
copy
I will be happy to give you. A
I'd
copy.
probably take one.
Fine. I will print off a bunch and give you two. Yes. Yes. You may master.
I got
I am
How
Joel.
much is an hour?
Any questions?
Wait, how much are those cheese things?
Okay, so you're giving your essay to someone else to take a look at. Okie dokie. Otherwise, the rest of the hour is all yours.
Yeah.